Welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is The Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here. Today on the big program, lots to get to, lots to talk about. As you can tell, a little bit under the weather. Took a week's vacation, a little time off. We've put together a new studio, still working out some weird kinks in the new space. Thought it was going to be a good week. We were going to get, head all done with the studio. It was going to be fabulous. And then, well, I got COVID. And this shocked to me because it's one of those things going, well, where was I? I wasn't around a huge crowd of people. I generally socially distance and all that. But here I am. And I'll tell you, glad I got the vaccine and the booster. Because it is whipping my behind. Cannot imagine how bad it would have been without it. But I think I'm over the hump. I think we're heading towards maybe getting a little bit better. Hoping. I want to thank the folks who on social media reached out and said, hey, we hope you're doing well. Hope you're getting better. Hope this isn't kicking your behind like it is. And for those who sent me emails, and there were a number of folks who wished me ill. A couple of people wanted me to die. You're not going to get your wish. Sorry. I know you were hoping. Not going to happen. Now, the weird thing is I'll tell you, I thought it was, this tells you how infrequently I get sick. I thought it was the Canadian air from the wildfires coming down, because over the days when I first got sick, our air quality here was just horrible, and it was one of those things that reminded me of being a kid growing up in Cleveland in the 70s with the horrible air. And it's one of those things where you saw the pictures from New York and you saw the pictures from around the country, and you go, yeah, you kind of now that's what the 70s were like. That's what the air quality was like when corporate America was spewing everything into the atmosphere, and we needed rules. And this is the reason that you fight for the EPA and the Clean Water and the Clean Air Act. And it was one of those things that rushed back to me and go, yeah, this is what it was. This is how bad it was. But it turned out to be, not that. So I ended up going to the doctor. I ended up getting a COVID test, which the weird thing is I did, the at-home ones. So I do the at-home ones, and the first one comes back positive. So I'm like, let me do another one because, hey, maybe fingers crossed. The next one comes back negative. And I'm like, well, now I got a positive and a negative. I need a rubber match. We need the tiebreaker. That one came back, we don't know. Which then led me to go to the the urgent care center, where they then gave me the test. Which the weird thing is the results came back abnormal but positive, and so begin the process of getting better and doing all that. Now I did ask the nurse. I said, which brand of bleach do I get for the best results? Is there a certain shade of light bulb I should be using? No sense of humor whatsoever. No one wanted to hear it. In fact, when I said, hey, can I just swing back by the Tractor Supply and pick up that ivermectin stuff? You think that'll help? Really not. No fun there at all. No sense of humor. In fact, walked out and did not say a word. And then I had to go back and say, I was joking. Yeah. But, last week was an interesting week. I take a week off, and finally the Department of Justice does something. This is the part that drives me crazy. Every time we take a day off here at the program, something like this happens. The last time, I was thinking about it, the last time something like this happened, the Mueller report dropped. You remember how long we were waiting for the big Mueller report? Oh, it's going to come, Mueller's in the rearview mirror. And, I was like, it'll come. We're taking we need a break. And bang, the day, in fact, I think it was the day we took off. They did drop it. But here we are. Tuesday going to be the big showdown in Miami, Florida, as Donald Trump has been indicted. It wasn't Joe Biden, and this is the part that gets me. It wasn't Joe Biden that did this. It was the Department of Justice and the grand jury, the peers. And I keep hearing all of this news, all these reports. There's going to be violence. There will be no violence. There'll be a couple of wineheads who are going to try and get some attention, but there's not going to be some mass organized march to break Donald Trump out of jail. It's not going to happen. There's not going to be some giant, right-wing militia coming down to free him. It's not. They're going to use the excuse of the FBI is going to come get us. Yeah, because if you try and do that, that is a crime. Don't crime. And this is the lesson in all of this. This is where my mind went. So Trump has been indicted, 37 counts, as I understand, that could net him somewhere, I don't know, 17 and a half to 22 years, somewhere in there. Good behavior, a little bit less than that. Someone who accepts responsibility and says, well, I made a mistake. Probably a lot less than that. I find it interesting that the number of people are saying, "Oh, this is all it's outrageous. Can't believe it." Here's the thing: don't crime. Don't crime. And I've been saying this all along. Don't crime. And where my mind has been is, as I'm watching Trump's reaction, because Trump's the one that I've been really paying attention to his Truth Social account. It's all been, what about him? What about that? It's not about him. And my mind came into this place where this is the first time that Trump is really being held accountable in his life. 70 plus years on this planet, no one's told him no. He was the kid that no one had the audacity to say, "No, Donald, you can't do that. No, Donald, you can't take that home with you. No, Donald, you can't steal that. No, Donald, that's not yours." No one has ever told him that. So, and I had this conversation over the weekend where I'm going, there's a part of me that feels sorry for him. And, poor parenting. This is what happens when parents don't teach their kids boundaries. This is what happens when parents give their kids everything that they want and never say no. In fact, when my wife and I had our children, there was a guy, and I forget his name, but he wrote a couple of books, and the one thing that he said children need a huge dose of is a heavy dose of vitamin N, and that is no. No, you can't have a cookie at it before dinner. No, you can't stay up past your bedtime. No, you can't. No. Teaches them boundaries. Teaches them that they don't get everything they want. Teaches them that maybe they shouldn't crime. And this is the place that I see Donald Trump in. Because again, the first time in his life he's being held accountable for his actions. Now the weird thing, as I said, pointing at the other side, Trump is now coming out and saying, well, if I become president, if I become president, I'm going to indict Joe Biden. Going to go after Joe Biden. And going after Joe Biden then takes some of the attention away from him. Now, I do find it interesting that there are some quotes that have grabbed my attention. Mick Mulvaney, Trump's former chief of staff, he said, "I think the chances of a guilty verdict are fairly high, and the chances of real jail time are pretty high." You have Trump's former Attorney General Billy Barr saying, even if half of it's true, he's toast. I mean, it's a very detailed indictment, and it is. I've read it. And he says it's very, very damning, and it is. I've read it. It's pretty damning. And it's one of those things that makes you go, yeah, it's pretty bad. So today on the program, I'm going to take some phone calls. I want to hear your thoughts. No screener today because COVID, only person in the studio. So when I reach out to you, you're going to go, hey, I'm going to say, what's your name, what's on your mind, and we're going to go through there. Not a whole bunch of carrying on. So let's give this a shot and see if this works. Hey, how we doing? What's your name and what's on your mind?
This is Kurt from Akron, Ohio.
Hey, Kurt, what's up?
Hey, not much. And hey, I'm sorry you have COVID. I'm one of the fortunate who never did get it in this whole thing, so my heart goes out to you that you got it.
I appreciate it. Thank you. What's on your mind?
You're welcome. Well, Lindsey Graham and all these guys, and Jim Jordan, first of all, if you ever notice, the faster Jim Jordan talks when he's making a point is the more he's lying to you. And he talks faster than the Micro Machine guy.
Yeah.
Remember those?
No, the FedEx guy.
Machine?
No, it was the FedEx guy.
The FedEx guy. There you go. And Lindsey Graham. Okay, dude, this is the thing, Miss Lindsey. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. And I'm sorry to all my LGBTQ.
Allow Lindsey to live his truth. Go on. What's on your mind? Get it out.
Right. But anyway, Hillary Clinton. He had to give the Republican point of view when George Stephanopoulos asked him about, is Trump guilty?
Yeah.
And he goes right for the Hillary Clinton thing.
Of course. It's all about what about? It's all about them. It's not about Trump.
It's the whataboutism.
Yep.
So here's the thing. Hillary Clinton, if you've read the book, What Happened After She Lost the Election to Donald Trump in 2016, she wrote that book, What Happened. She kind of addressed that to the point where, if you remember, government agencies were being hacked at that time when she was Secretary of State.
No, I don't even need that, Kurt. I don't need that. I know that when Trump was president for 4 years, his Department of Justice didn't do anything because there was nothing.
There was nothing, but what I'm saying is what they need to start coming back with is, there was hacking going on then, and they need to push back is what they need to do. Yeah. These media people, either that or not have these people on. But what I was getting at is she wanted to have her emails secure that might be some kind of sensitive information, not necessarily classified or anything, but sensitive. And she thought, what better place than a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week Secret Service protected server, because her husband had a Secret Service protected server in the house. So, and if you remember, her private server never got hacked during all that time. And then the other point I was going to make was, gosh, there's just so much. This is so fluid. This is such a fluid situation right now. Oh, the BlackBerry thing. You know how he says, oh, she destroyed the BlackBerry, she wiped the BlackBerry, all this other stuff.
Yeah. See, here's the thing, Kurt. This is where you're playing their game. You're making defenses of things that are so far in the past that I don't even care anymore, because, again, Trump was president for 4 years. His DOJ could have done all of this, and they didn't, because, again, there's nothing. What's at stake here is a former president criming. And if you read this 47-page indictment, it is damning. His own attorney general said it is damning. His chief of staff said he's probably going to jail. This is bad for him, so all of the deflection is what they need.
And here's the thing on that third paragraph in that damning report, or in that damning indictment, that's probably the most damning part.
Yeah, no, I mean, the fact that, I said this from the beginning, people have gone, well, Joe Biden in the garage. Yeah, okay, fine. Biden gave the stuff back. It's the cover-up. It's always the cover-up. And I said in politics, we know this, Kurt.
That's where the two things differ. That's where the two things part, because when you think about it, Trump was given every opportunity over what did they say, 25 times in like a year and a half by the National Archives and the FBI. In fact, don't call it a raid, people. It's not a raid. They were plain clothes. It was at 10 o'clock in the morning. They were welcomed into Mar-a-Lago to pick up the boxes. Don't let them buffalo you.
I don't care if it was a raid or not. The guy didn't give the stuff back. He should have given it back. He lied at every turn. He did what a child would do to try and cover up the fact that he broke the lamp in the living room, and now he's being held accountable for the first time in his life, and it's about time.
And that's where it differs. And that's where it differs between him, Biden, and Pence. At least Biden and Pence knew enough to, once they found out, they called their lawyers, they called the National Archives, and they said, we found some stuff, you need to come and get it. And that is why Biden and Pence will not be getting in trouble for this.
And I said that from the very beginning. This is every political scandal ever. If you come out and you say, yep, I did it, then you're going to you're going to pay a price. But if you try to continue covering it up and lying and making stuff up, that's what gets you. It's the lying that gets you. It's what I tell my kids. Look, if you do something and you tell me the truth, I'm not going to get mad at you. But if I know you did it and you lie to me, if you look me in the eye and tell me a bold-faced lie, I'm going to be really ticked.
That's where you're going to get busted.
That's it.
Just remember, it wasn't the crime that took Nixon down. It was the cover-up, and it was the lie.
Yeah.
And the ironic thing about this whole thing, if Trump is found guilty, I think he will, but I don't know if he'll serve prison time. The ironic part of this is he changed that espionage punishment when he was president because he wanted Hillary Clinton to go to prison, and now he is probably going to be the one that goes, well, let's say hypothetically, or whatever you want to call it, going to prison for doing what he wanted Hillary Clinton to go to prison for. Yeah. That's the ironic part.
That's the ironic part. You're absolutely right. And it's in the indictment, too. They even say, look, Trump said this when he was running for president. All of the things that he would do and why, protecting classified information is so important. You got to read the report because it's brilliant.
That's the Russia if you're listening statement. That was the Russia if you're listening statement where he said all that, too.
No, it's brilliant. But, Kurt, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
And I hope you feel better.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the well wish. As I said, I love when people wish me well. For those who wish me ill, too bad. Want to hear your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Going to take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. You listen to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. You got a thought? Something on the Trump indictment? Want to hear it? Again, no screener today, so you're going to have to hang on until I get to you with you. You're going to say your name and what you want. We're gonna get right through some stuff. Now here's the weird thing. I got a bunch of emails from people going, "Oh, this is all political." Merrick Garland's a hatchet guy, and I'm going, "Wait a second. Garland was a moderate Democrat at best. In fact, if you remember 2010, Garland was the guy that I think it was Orrin Hatch had put forth for Obama to choose as a Supreme Court justice. Obama chose Elena Kagan, but at that moment, that was one of those things where you go, "Hey, we like this guy. Why don't you put this guy in there?" Only to have him denied down the road, and now hatchet jobbed. It's really remarkable where we are. Let's quick go to the phones. On line one, how we doing? What's your name? What's on your mind?
Hello, it's Alice.
Hey, Alice.
Pennsylvania. I just wanted to say that I find it amazing that we have all these Republicans all of a sudden deflecting, lying, and whatnot. And I hear that, among themselves, though, they're talking about, how they can do damage control. And then you have the few, of course, that are going, "Oh, wow." So I'm just going, yeah, you guys are like splintering.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite conversation was with a reporter and Kevin McCarthy. The reporter said, "Hey, well, was that a good look for the former president to have boxes in a bathroom?" And McCarthy chimes back, "I don't know. Is it a good picture to have boxes in a garage that's open up all the time? A bathroom door has locks."
Oh, I know. Yeah, like that door's locked all the time. You know, it's just amazing to me that you just sit there and go, okay. So basically, I don't know why they don't just say, you know, if a Republican does it, it's fine if the crime wasn't committed. But if it's anybody else, it was a crime. I mean, that's basically what they're saying to us.
That's what they're trying. What they should have done, all they had to do is, on the doorknob, hang presidential library, and maybe you'd had a defense.
That is probably a good idea. But I'm glad you're feeling better, and I'm so sorry that you finally caught the COVID.
Yeah.
And that your son got it, too. He's had a bad year.
Yeah.
But you have a good evening,
Thank
Rick.
you, Alice. Appreciate it. No, it's been a rough couple of days. This has done. Wow. This has been a beating for me. I've had colds in the past. I've been sick in the past. Nothing like this. Now, here's the weird thing, and this is a good thing. This is why I think this is important and different than a lot of points in the past. The recent Reuters Ipsos poll, 62% of Americans polled believe the charges. 62%. DOJ, understand, DOJ, they don't willy-nilly grab stuff. They don't. And they win like 99% of the time. So, going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Let's go to the phones. What's on your mind? What's your name? What's on your mind? All right, I think I lost you. Let's go here. What's your name and what's on your mind? Go ahead. What's on your mind? Listen to the phone, not to the radio.
So, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Let's go on the phone. What's on your mind? What's on your mind?
Yeah, you there?
Let's go here.
Well, we'll wait till he gets around to it. This has got to be Gary from Minnesota, right, Gary?
Go ahead. What's on your mind? Listen to the phone, not to the radio. So, interesting to see how this plays out.
All righty, we're going to let you go then. Thanks. Appreciate the call, man. Look, I don't have a screener. You gotta listen to the. You gotta listen to the when I pick up. You gotta listen to the phone, not to the radio. Turn the radio down when you call in. This way we can talk. But what I said is, the big reality is 62% of people are saying, yeah, I believe the charges. And if you read them, they lay it out pretty good. 91% of Republicans, 35%. 91% of Democrats, 35% of Republicans. That's a pretty big deal. Pretty big deal in my view. And again, I go back to the comments by his chief of staff. Chances of a guilty verdict, fairly high. Fairly high indeed. Going to be interesting to see where this goes. I know Trump is whining and complaining that, they're coming after me every time I fly over a blue state. There's a subpoena. Well, Florida is not a blue state. And on Tuesday, you're gonna. I'm gonna take a quick break. Right back. Stick around.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1936. That was the day Remington Rand President James Rand boasted of a new scheme. He called it the Mohawk Valley Formula. It served as a blueprint for the future of union busting. The National Labor Relations Board called it a battle plan for industrial war. The workers at Remington Rand had walked out on strike in late May after enduring a year of anti-union harassment, threatened plant closures, and firings of top union leaders. The company used a number of dirty tricks during the strike to mislead and demoralize strike forces. In his book, The Last Great Strike, Ahmed White describes the purpose and function of the formula, writing, quote, "The scheme figured in the Little Steel Strike, as several authorities would accuse the steel companies of patterning their response to the steel strike after Rand's formula. It consisted of no fewer than 9 steps, all oriented to employing threatening armed forces, spies, and provocateurs, company-sponsored back-to-work movements, and staged reopenings to terrorize and demoralize strikers. Provoke strikers to violence and discredit them. Then use the specter of violence and pretense of a state of emergency to mobilize opposition to the strike on the part of local police and courts. And finally, announcing that the strike had been broken and that any remaining resistance was the work of an intractable minority hostile to community values and the right to work." The central insight behind the formula was that violence could be used not only to drive workers off the picket lines and paralyze them with fear, but also to turn both the law and political sentiments against unionists while justifying the employer's own conduct and excluding its contempt for labor rights.
As Scottish literary giant Robert Burns wrote, "The best laid schemes of mice and men go oft awry." His 1785 poem, titled To a Mouse, could be directed today at the right-wing sloganeers who've been scheming so furiously to turn their hokey woke snobbery into a winning political stratagem. "Your local librarian is woke," they screech. "So is Disney Inc., some of your churches too, plus all Democrats, and oh my God, even Bud Light." Creeping wokeism is the new Red Scare, welfare queen, and Willie Horton political bugaboos rolled into one, forming the main, quote, issue of Republicans now running for president, Congress, and dog catcher. But rather than getting defensive, insisting you are not woke, consider firing back by saying, "Of course I'm woke." For the great majority of Americans, being woke is a very positive characteristic, meaning you're awake, attentive to what's going on. Indeed, in black communities, stay woke has long meant staying alert to racial and social injustices. But even some Republicans must consider it bizarrely self-defeating for their party's top candidates to be urging voters to go to sleep. GOP leaders explain that anti-woke means crusading against DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. But wait, that means they're opposing America itself, for we are a nation united under the essential principle of e pluribus unum. As affirmed by everything from the Declaration of Independence to our kindergarten teachings of sharing and fairness, ours is a country rooted in constant diversification, expanding equality, and the democratic idea that every voice ought to be included. Our country needs more of all three. This is Jim Hightower saying America is way short of achieving these historic ideals, but shame on those demanding we abandon even striving for them. Confront the charlatans.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So before we move on, let's get to the phones. I got Dick in Chicago on line 1. Dick, buddy, what's on your mind?
Hey, man. First time calling. Sorry about the COVID. Hope you feel better soon.
Thank you, brother.
But
Appreciate
I got a quick question. So now I haven't actually read the indictment yet. I'm going to. I'm planning on it. Just haven't gotten to it this week. But, I mean, my understanding, everything I hear, they're talking about, evidence or that Trump, sold or traded some of these secret documents. Well, my question is this. Why did the Saudis give Jared Kushner $2 billion?
That's always been my question.
Yeah. But don't you think it has something to do with selling secrets to them or giving something to them?
That's something that should be investigated, most certainly.
I
said
so.
The first time we found out about Kushner and the $2 billion, I'm like, maybe someone should look into this.
Absolutely. I hope Jack Smith is.
I'm with you.
But someone has to look. Yeah, someone has to look into that. That's mighty fishy.
Yeah.
I'm
with
mighty
you.
fishy.
Thanks, Dick.
Anyway, just wanted to make that comment. Take care, man. You're great.
Good stuff.
Bye.
Appreciate it. No, like I said that from the beginning. When that first came out, Kushner getting this huge windfall of money. You go, come on. It's not because he's good looking. Most certainly not. So let's. I like getting a different perspective. I like reaching out to my friends on the other side of the political ideological divide. In this moment, I think there might be some unity opportunity, which is why I asked my good friend Joe Walsh to come share some thoughts with us. Joe is a former Illinois congressman, former presidential candidate, also host of the fabulous podcast White Flag with Joe Walsh. Joe, thanks for taking time for us.
Rick, you sound like crap. You should be in bed.
I absolutely, positively, 100% agree with you. I should be in bed.
There, right off the gate, we found common ground.
So let's get your thoughts on this indictment. Thoughts? We right, wrong?
Oh, I mean, look, legally, absolutely right. Trump broke the law. He committed crimes. He deserved to be indicted. He'll deserve to be indicted again in Georgia in a couple months, and he'll deserve to be indicted a couple months after that for what he did to lead to January 6th. Rick, he deserves to be indicted. He deserves to be convicted. He ought to be in jail. But having said all of that, let's not be blind, silly, and stupid. Every single freaking indictment is going to strengthen him politically within the Republican Party. This one especially.
Absolutely. And look, I've said he'll probably be convicted. I don't think he spends a day in jail. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't see it. But this is one of those things where, when you read the indictment, and I sat down and I picked through it, you go, the crime here is like every one of these political crimes. It's the cover-up. It's everything you did to get away with the original act. It's like, when your children break the lamp in the living room, all the stuff they do to cover it up. That's what you get mad about, not about the broken lamp as much. And to me, that's always been the differentiation in this between Biden and Pence or anyone else for that matter.
All he had to do, Rick, was return the documents, just like everybody else did. But again, Donald Trump, Rick, has been obstructing justice his entire life. So it's not a surprise that he's doing it here.
No, as I said at the beginning, I said this is the first time, and I almost feel sorry for him. This is bad parenting. I don't believe he's ever been told no in his lifetime. This is the first time in his 70-plus years on this planet where someone has said no, and he doesn't like it.
Most certainly he doesn't like it. But again, this is serious, but we need perspective here.
Right.
He will be indicted in 2 months for criminally interfering in Georgia's 2020 election. Of that, I have no doubt. There would not have been a January 6th without him. I'd be really surprised if he's not indicted for that. Those two crimes, Rick, trying to end our democracy, are much more serious.
See, here's the thing. This is where there's some seriousness in this for me as well. The fact that he had these documents, the fact that we know that he showed them to people and joked, or this is what the indictment says, joked that, I shouldn't be showing you this. That takes to me another level of question that I have. And as the caller a minute ago asked, about the $2 billion in Kushner and the cozy relationship with the Saudis, you start questioning a lot of this stuff and the motivation and the means. And I got to tell you, there's a lot here, man.
There is, Rick. Look, I have publicly called Donald Trump a traitor for the past 5 years now. He doesn't give a damn about this country. It's why he did what he did after the 2020 election. He had some of our most sensitive, top secret information down there, defense information, nuclear capability information, top secret of our allies. You and I and everybody listening to us wouldn't hesitate to believe that Donald Trump wouldn't hesitate to give that information to anybody. He doesn't care about this country.
Now, the weird thing to me, and this is where I struggle, I remember a country where, our division stopped at the water's edge. I remember a country that, we put down our political divides every once in a while when the country was at stake. So I'm looking at the Republican Party right now and going, they know that he's guilty. I mean, you got Mulvaney saying, "Yeah, it's bad. He's probably gonna get convicted." You got Billy Barr saying the same thing. You've got some, but the Republican Party as a whole, not so much. And I think you as a cautionary tale of when you come out and you speak out against the dear leader. And I think that's the reason we're not seeing as many people coming out and saying anything on this as I would have hoped we would have.
Anybody who publicly comes out strongly against Donald Trump is done as a Republican. I learned that 5 years ago. Liz Cheney and my friend Adam Kinzinger learned that a couple years ago. You've got Chris Christie out there pounding Donald Trump right now. Chris Christie has zero constituency in the Republican Party. Yeah. It's his party. And Rick, it's his party because the voters, Republican voters are standing with him. The only reason Ron DeSantis and Mike Pence and Kevin McCarthy and all the rest are standing with Donald Trump is because those Republican voters are standing with him. That's the problem.
And how much of that is our media culture? I mean, we've divided up. We're in red hat, blue hat land, where if you wear the red hat, you got to believe the narrative. Facts be damned. It's about the story. It's about the lies we tell ourselves on both sides of the fence. I would argue Democrats are a little more fact based and fact driven. You could disagree, but how much of it is that narrative that they stole this from us, and no fact or reality shall ever cloud that view.
It plays a part. 80% of Republican voters do not believe Joe Biden won. So who's to blame for that, Rick? Are Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity and the rest to blame because they feed that lie? And they spent years telling their audience that lie? To a degree, yeah. Shame on them, yeah. Shame on Trump, yeah. But at the end of the day, shame on these Republican voters, most of whom were my followers and my supporters, for embracing all of these untruths.
So let me ask you this, because we've had this conversation in the past that our friends on the right, heavily armed. I keep hearing stories of, like we heard before January 6th, that they're showing up armed to protest, stacking up bodies, and I forgot what the other idiot said. But there's been a number of those kind of statements made that, Tuesday is going to be a violent day in Miami. Personally, I'm not expecting anything because I think they're cowards, and I don't think that they have the kind of support that's being projected. But I'm curious your thought.
I don't think there'll be violence tomorrow. I don't think we'll see another January 6th. But, Rick, we've got, 17 months until the election? I think we're going to see a lot of violence between now and the November 2024 election. A lot of targeted violence, a lot of isolated violence, a lot of lone wolves out there. Look, Trump just got indicted for the second time. He'll be indicted for a third time. If he's not the nominee, imagine how upset his do-or-die supporters are going to be. This is going to be a really ugly 17 months, and America needs to brace themselves for that.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show here with Joe Walsh, former Illinois Congressman and 2020 Republican presidential candidate, also host of White Flag with Joe Walsh. We'll get a link out on social media how you can take a look at that. But, here's the thing, and this is where I keep coming back to this moment of, this is going to make him stronger with this base, not the general electorate. That's still up in the air for me. Yeah, I think the Republican Party's already in the bag for him. How do you see this going in the general? Because as I understand, this isn't going to be over before the general election, and there's a lot of questions of what happens after. But how do you see this playing out in a general if and when he is the Republican nominee?
Hey, Rick, I actually disagree. I have a really contrarian view. I think, I have no doubt that all of this will strengthen him in the party, but I think this could strengthen him in a general election as well. Now, a lot of that has to do with Biden and how weak I think the Democrats are, and how, let's be clear, how fragile Joe Biden is. Joe Biden now has a record he has to defend. You may like some of that record, but the Republicans can try to make mincemeat out of that record. Joe Biden is a communications problem. And it's this notion, Rick, as well, that appeals to people outside just the base that Trump is being unfairly targeted. Bibi Netanyahu became prime minister of Israel, and he was indicted before he became prime minister again. I think this notion of Trump wearing this as a badge, that especially if he's indicted another time or two, that I'm being unfairly targeted. Rick, that message, even if not accurate, appeals to people beyond the base.
No, the victim card, you're right. And as I've said before, no one plays the victim card like a Republican. And you can disagree with that, but boy, they're good at it.
Both sides are really good at it. In my lifetime, Rick, I've never seen anybody better at it than Trump. But again, it goes to, even though I don't like Trump and I can't stand him and I'm doing everything I can to defeat him again, I believe I am always a distrusting of government. And so it's not a reach. I've had a lot of reasonable Republicans tell me over the weekend, it just seems, Joe, like they're unfairly going after him. Let the voters decide who the next president is, not some special counsel. I hear that from people who are not MAGA cult members.
Yeah, well, I think the voters are going to be able to do that because, again, I don't think this trial will be over by Election Day.
It won't be.
And so the bigger question here, Joe, is, at what point do you hold people accountable? I mean, we can go back through past presidents and things that have been done, and they were able to, let sleeping dogs lie, let's move forward for the good of the country, all this stuff. And we've never held anybody really accountable for things that they do because we've never really had this kind of a guy who's done this much. This is the part where this is a bridge too far. This has to be tried. This has to be put out in the public. Win, lose, or draw, I think the crimes have to be exposed.
They have to be, Rick, no matter what the political ramifications are. Donald Trump is a criminal and a traitor. We've never, ever, ever had a unique threat like this. So he has to be held accountable. My God, 2.5 years ago, he led a violent attempt to overthrow an American election. If he doesn't pay a price for that legally, then we're toast as a country.
No, I absolutely agree with you. Now, I saw John Dean, who was on CNN, and said that he's urging this Walt, I can't pronounce his name, not a Nauta. I can never.
Yeah, the body man.
Yeah, I can't pronounce his name. He's saying, look, this guy needs to strike a deal. This guy needs to come clean. I fear, and this is the weird part of this. This is how I see this. If I'm him, I think you gotta come and turn because you're gonna be. I think ultimately he's gonna be the guy laying on the sword, spending 17, 20 years in prison for something he was told to do. So I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know, Rick, but hasn't he already testified under oath in front of the grand jury? I mean, he's still bodying Trump right now, but he's already testified to the grand jury. And it sounds like they caught him in a few falsehoods. Look, Rick Wilson, right? Everybody that Trump touches dies. Yeah. It just amazes me that people who've worked for him, more people, don't turn on him. For all we know, Rick, Mark Meadows has turned on him.
No, and this is the weird thing.
It won't matter. Politically, none of this matters.
None of it matters. And the weird thing is this is stuff I was saying back in 2015, Joe, that, having followed Trump in New York, having followed his rise to attention, this is a guy who stiffs people. This is a guy who gets what he wants and leaves disaster in its wake. And am I surprised? I go back to, Inauguration Day 2017 and said this is going to be, and again, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not clairvoyant, not particularly bright, but I said this is going to be the most corrupt administration in the history of this country because just look at his business record, and he did not disappoint.
So the scary thing to wrap our arms around is and I'm convinced of this now, Rick, because I come from the world of the Trump supporter. Trump's supporters, his base, they know he's a criminal. They know he's corrupt. They know he's kind of a traitor. They want it.
Yeah. No,
they want it.
See, and that's the
thing. They want all of that.
And you should say that 10 more times, because I think that's something that I struggled with for a while. I know a lot of people on the left. I know a lot of Democrats. I know a lot of Republicans. They don't believe that the base doesn't care about any of it. The crimes.
Bull crap. Not only do they not care, and I come from the base, and I still talk to these people every day.
No, I'm agreeing with you, Joe. I'm agreeing with you.
And not only do they not care, Rick, it's scarier. This is what they want.
Yes.
They want an authoritarian. They want a bad guy. They want a bully. They want somebody who's corrupt.
Because they want them to go after the others. And the weird thing is this is that Pastor Niemöller thing that I keep bringing up every once in a while. Yeah. You know, eventually the bully comes for you. Eventually the bully takes your lunch money. But for right now, it's just the others. It's, the woke or the LGBT or the minorities or you name it. It's them first. But eventually they come for you.
And they haven't thought that far ahead. Right now, the corrupt bully, is going after everybody they hate, and they love it. So they've given him carte blanche to do whatever he wants to do.
Wow. I mean, we definitely live in scary times, but we'll see how this breaks out. What are you expecting? Last line of questioning. What are you expecting coming out of the court appearance on Tuesday? Do you think this will be low key? Do you think there'll be a lot of people showing up? With the Nazi flags going to come marching down the street? What are you expecting?
Hey, Rick, I actually think tomorrow is going to be a really big day for Donald Trump. I hate to say that, but politically, I think there's going to be a huge crowd down in Miami. I think he's then going to fly back up to New Jersey. He's got a big event and a speech planned in New Jersey. I think tomorrow, Tuesday, is going to be politically a knock it out of the park day for Donald Trump. It's going to be a spectacle, and he's going to be like this martyr, this savior. It's going to be a bad day for us, but a good day for him.
No, he will. The one thing you give him credit for, when he's got center stage, he takes advantage of it.
Yeah.
And this is what we're going to see. It's everyone else's responsibility to pay attention, and then to hold him accountable. Because as I've said before, this could be the first time in his life. But Joe, as always, I appreciate the thoughts. I look forward to the day when we can argue about policy and how we move the country forward, other than how do we stop it from burning. But one day.
One day soon. Go to bed. You're sick.
Joe Walsh, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much. Good stuff, our good friend Joe Walsh. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. Right back with your thoughts. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. For working people. We'll talk.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1904. That was the day that 18,000 workers in Chicago's stockyards went out on strike. Work in the stockyards was often brutal and dangerous. Thousands of workers toiled in the yards, many of them immigrants from Eastern Europe. They worked butchering and processing the hogs and cattle raised in the American West into meat for distribution by rail to consumers across the country. The industry gave Chicago the nickname Hog Butcher for the World. In 1904, the Amalgamated Meat Cutters Union organized a strike. The main demand was increased wages. The meatpacking companies were able to get scabs to cross the picket lines and act as strikebreakers. Most were African Americans and European immigrants. Many of these workers had not been organized by the union, which was dominated by the skilled German and Irish packing house workers. Novelist Upton Sinclair visited the stockyards during the strike to research conditions faced by the workers. In his famous novel, The Jungle, Sinclair gave a fictionalized account that captured the devastating impact of the scabs on the strike. He wrote, quote, "Such were the stockyards during the strike, while the unions watched in sullen despair, and the country clamored like a greedy child for its food, and the packers went grimly on their way. Each day they added new workers and could be more stern with the old ones, could put them on piecework and dismiss them if they did not keep pace." It was not until the 1930s, when the stockyard unions took seriously the task of organizing across race, ethnic, and skill lines, that they finally won a contract and gained the rights of union recognition.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
Sorry, only one of us in the studio today. COVID has taken over my studio. Yeah, I finally got it, and I'm not happy with it. And again, I want to thank all the folks who did send out well wishes for a speedy recovery, and for the folks who did not, well, you know where you can go. That's the best I've got. So if you're calling, the reality is no screeners to answer the phones. It's got to be me. Just is what it is. But here's the weird thing, and this is where I'm hoping in this moment. that the rest of us, I get the red hats are never going to see the flaws. They're going to read the 47-page indictment that the DOJ put out. And again, this isn't a politically motivated deal. I've had a bunch of people, this is Joe Biden going, no, this isn't Biden. Biden wants no part of this. Because as Joe Walsh said, this just strengthens Trump. This just makes Trump more the victim so he can continue to raise money off of and fleece the dim. But this has to happen. Is this how I want it to happen? No, I think this should have happened a while ago. But we're in a moment where this is, Lindsey Graham's right, and some of the others are right. This is going to strengthen him. This is going to give him that ability to go, oh, they're coming after us. It's not just me. No, it's not me. It's you. And he said this already. This is going to be the shtick. It's not about me. No, I'm as pure as the driven snow. They want to silence all of you by taking me away from you. I mean, the narcissism that comes with this is pretty incredible. But that's who he is, and again, that's why the base loves him. And I know people who have looked at me in the face and said, don't care. Don't care that he's cheated on his wife multiple times. Don't care that he's taken food out of the mouths of children. Don't care that he stole the lollipop from the little girl on the street corner. Don't care. He's going to do the stuff I want, and that's, all of the culture war stuff, all of the tax break stuff, all of that. So it's up to everyone else to say, look, do we have a country that believes in the democratic process, that holds people accountable when they break the law, that the Lady Justice is blind? Or do we have what it appears we're moving towards? An authoritarian state where the mob, if they don't get their way, are going to start smashing things. And this is the interesting moment that we're in. So let's real quick. I got 30 seconds. What's your name? What's on your mind? Real quick. Go.
Dan from Chicago, wanting to talk about the Republican new campaign promise about the corrupt judicial system.
I'm going to have to put you on hold for that.
Okay.
I got to take a break right here.
Oh, that's fine.
Want to hear your thoughts. Going to take a quick break right back after this. Stick around.
Avoid going outside unless you absolutely have to.
A smoky wake-up call for our climate crisis. Saudi Arabia to cut production again to boost oil prices. Plus,
we cannot say conclusively what happened at this point. What we absolutely can say is that the damage to the Ukrainian people and to the region will be significant.
Ukraine dam's destruction unleashes massive flooding and ecological disaster.
All of those damn disasters and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Wildfires have been happening for a long time before we started talking about the climate crisis. So, I want to make sure that the science is settled before we completely turf our economy and flush any innovation we have down the toilet.
Good plan, Fox News. Take your time. Everything's working out great. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, don't get carried away with yourself. We want to make sure that the science is settled before we take any action, and how many billions of dollars we spend until the science is settled cleaning up the mess, well, we'll worry about that later, I guess.
Yeah, that's just more nonsense from Fox News.
Go figure. What do you got for us today?
Well, more than 55 million Americans are under air quality alerts, warning them to not go outside because of dangerous smoke from wildfires in Canada. Canada is suffering one of the worst starts to its wildfire season ever recorded, fueled by unseasonably hot and dry conditions. More than 400 active wildfires have burned 15 times the average acreage for this time of year.
But is the science settled?
Yes, it is. More than 10,000 people have been forced to evacuate their homes. Here in the U.S., a broad swath of the Northeast has been blanketed with heavy smoke. New York City officially recorded the worst air quality in the world, with officials urging residents to stay indoors, close windows and doors, and use air purifiers.
Well, let's not take any rash actions here.
Wildfire smoke is especially dangerous for children, seniors, and those with respiratory ailments, but it is risky for everyone. Wildfire smoke contains toxic contaminants from everything the fire has burned. So be sure to check the air quality in your area and wear a high-quality mask outdoors.
Or at least once the science has settled.
And yes, this is what climate change looks like. Human-caused climate change is increasing the frequency and intensity of wildfires and creating longer fire seasons around the world. Stanford University researchers found that the number of Americans who experience extreme smoke days has risen 27-fold over the last decade. In a recent study, scientists concluded that almost 40% of the land burned by wildfires in the western U.S. and Canada can be traced back to carbon pollution released by the world's largest fossil fuel and cement companies. In other news, in Ukraine, destruction of a major hydroelectric dam has unleashed massive flooding and widespread environmental disaster, forcing tens of thousands to evacuate from fast-moving, polluted floodwaters. Russia and Ukraine blamed each other for the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam. U.S. intelligence officials say it is unclear who is responsible. But the flooding has caused widespread ecological damage that officials say could forever change ecosystems. 150 tons of oil stored inside the hydroelectric power plant were swept into the floodwaters. The reservoir also cooled the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. But the head of the UN International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, said the plant's water reserves should hold for now.
Our current assessment is that there is no immediate risk to the safety of the plant. The reactors have been shut down for many months. It is estimated that this pond will be sufficient to provide water for cooling for some months.
We can only hope.
Elsewhere, oil prices spiked this week after the world's top exporter, Saudi Arabia, announced it will cut production further next month in an effort to prop up oil prices amid sagging global demand. The Biden administration Environmental Protection Agency announced $115 million in new funding to repair and upgrade the deteriorating water system in Jackson, Mississippi.
Thank you.
Interior Secretary Deb Haaland announced a 20-year moratorium on oil and gas leasing within 10 miles of the Chaco Culture National Historic Park in New Mexico. And finally, in Congress, far-right House Republicans tried to punish Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy Committee over the debt ceiling deal he struck with President Biden by sabotaging their own bill, which was supposed to block new pollution rules for natural gas stoves.
Brilliant. The science is settled on that. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
There's a lot to what's going to happen on Tuesday with Trump and the court appearance, and I'm going to get to that, but I first want to get to the phones. I got Dan in Chicago on line one. Dan, what's on your mind, brother?
Hey, Rick. Thanks for having me on. Just wanted to talk about the fact that I feel like the new Republican campaign slogan is the corrupt Justice Department and the attack on the FBI. And so the law and order party is seemingly becoming the less and less law and order party. And I think I've only heard two Republican, I'll call them presidential nominees, or they're better in the field, speaking out against Trump. And so Tom Hartman, who I listen to quite a bit, was speaking about that those folks that they are shaming this probe and this indictment. I feel like they're not really running for president; they're just running for vice president or a cabinet position of some sort.
Yep.
And it's crazy to me to see that happening. But I'm also not surprised because I've seen this party, which I used to be a part of, and now I'm as far left as you can imagine. But it's just crazy to see like that whole, infrastructure just like crumble, just because of one man who controls 33% of the Republican.
Yep, and the Congress of the rest of the party. You're right. You're spot on.
It's insane, and Walsh, who I never agree with anything on. I agree with him on a lot of things that he was just talking to you about.
No, that's how we became friends. When he was in Congress, he was my chew toy. I used to beat up on him all the time, and we've had conversations on it. And maybe we get back to that. But right now, it's about saving democracy, Dan. I appreciate the thoughts.
I agree completely. Yeah, thank you for your show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But the thing is when this happens on Tuesday. It's going to be an explosion for Trump, and this is going to be a huge thing. The question is how's this going to? What are we going to expect? That's why I've asked my good friend Renato Mariotti to come talk with us. Renato is a former federal prosecutor. He is also the host of the fabulous podcast On Topic, or It's Complicated. It's the It's Complicated podcast. I will get links out on social media how you do that. Renato, thanks for taking time for us.
Absolutely. How you doing, Rick?
I am good. So what are we expecting on Tuesday? What's going to happen, do you think?
Sure. Well, I've handled, a few hundred arraignments in my life at least. What's going to happen is he's going to go into the courthouse. The judge is going to make sure he's aware of the maximum penalty he's facing, which has absolutely nothing to do, by the way, with the actual sentence someone receives. It's those bizarro numbers you hear, Paul Manafort is facing 580 years in prison or whatever it is, right? Some absurd number. He will be notified of the charges against him. In the olden days, they would actually read the indictment out loud. That's usually waived nowadays. And he will enter a plea of not guilty on all the counts. Then there's going to be some preliminary scheduling issues. In a case like this, a national security case, there's a kind of a protective order that's entered in the very beginning of the case to protect the sensitive material that's involved in the discovery. And there's going to be a bunch of date sets, and that's really it. It's a very perfunctory initial appearance that occurs in a case like this. He'll be informed of his rights and so forth, which are not going to surprise anyone. He'll be out on bond just like he was in the New York state case.
Now, I've had a couple people email me and said, well, it's a Trump appointed judge. They may toss it. They may just quash it. Is that possible?
No, I mean, this won't even be before Judge Cannon. It's going to be before a magistrate judge, which is essentially not I don't want to say not a real judge. They are real judges, but they're not a judge under Article 3 appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate. They're kind of temporary judges for a period of time. And they're there to sort of perform some of these more ministerial duties, like an arraignment. So this person is not going to be making a lot of big decisions tomorrow.
So any chance that Judge Cannon, throws a wrench into this? Any chance of that?
Absolutely, just not not tomorrow.
Not tomorrow.
I mean, she's a pretty big wild card. I mean, if you're kind of thinking about what are the potential problems with this case, what are the potential downsides, what might happen, there's no question that Eileen Cannon has got to be the top of the list. I mean, she could undo the entire case effectively. I mean, all she has to do is wait for the jury to be impaneled, and then she can effectively toss the case without really an ability to appeal that. So a lot of power that goes to the district judge in a case like this.
Any chance? Because I've had a bunch of people say, well, this is not a big deal. That's what's going to happen. I've even had people say, well, they're going to be Trump supporters on that jury. You're never going to convict because the Trump supporters won't allow it. There are a lot of roadblocks in the way toward. So I don't want my lefty friends to get all excited. Oh, we got him like they did during the Mueller years. This is a step in the right direction, but there are a lot of challenges along the way, aren't there?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're a lot closer than Robert Mueller. Okay, this isn't a report; this is an indictment, so
right.
that's a significant difference. The charges are pretty serious. The evidence appears to be very strong. So there's a lot for people to be encouraged about if they're looking for a conviction here. But absolutely, there are a lot of roadblocks. Eileen Cannon is one of them. She could totally throw a wrench in the works, quite literally. Like you said, one juror. All you need is one person who's got very strong feelings about Donald Trump who refuses to vote to convict, and that's that. You have a hung jury. By the way, I was a federal prosecutor in Chicago when we prosecuted Rod Blagojevich. I was there during that first trial. And that first trial, the jury deadlocked on all but one count. And there was a single juror who was responsible for that. She just really liked Rod Blagojevich. So it's a very similar kind of figure, too, because they were very charismatic, fraudster types, okay? And he convinced one person that was enough to get it past trial one. Obviously, there's a second trial, and he was convicted on a whole slew of counts. But that first trial, that one juror made the difference.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out because this isn't going to be the first indictment coming down. We're expecting Georgia. We're expecting more down the road. But this is the most significant, I think, to this point. The thing in New York, that is what it is. But this is something I had a bunch of people tell me, no, it's the same as what Joe Biden did. What's the difference? And I've made my thoughts on this, but you're a federal prosecutor. You're the guy who looks at that 47 pages that I read with an amateur's eye. What in that is the most damning, do you think?
Wow. Well, there's a lot that's damning that's there. I certainly think that the words that his attorney said that he had told them was very damning. According to his own attorneys, who, by the way, were hired by Trump to help him. They're not trying to bury him. They were trying to help him. According to the attorney, he told the attorney to lie to law enforcement to try to hide and destroy documents. Right? I mean, that's serious stuff. That's the way that criminals operate. That's not the way we expect a former president to operate. So, that to me, that speaks 1,000 words right there. Obviously, his own recorded statement effectively admits the crime there, right? Like, hey, I've got all this secret stuff. I could have declassified it, but I didn't. But I'm sharing it to you now. Let me tell you, right? The attack plans or something. And that was pretty amazing. Speaking about speaking 1,000 words, the photos of lots of classified documents in like the toilet. There's one like strewn on the floor, right? That Walt Nauta found. I mean, it's sort of like, what do you like? What's your favorite piece of evidence? There's so much to choose from there.
Yeah, I mean, the pictures from the Trump Presidential Library were priceless.
Was that the toilet?
Yeah.
But I will just say, you asked earlier before you asked me that question. You had also asked about the difference between this and, let's say, what President Biden allegedly did, and you could throw in others, Mike Pence or Hillary Clinton or whoever else. Okay, and the fact of the matter is that Biden and Pence are kind of in the same category. These are people who are vice presidents who left office. They had a lot of papers with them, and some of them turned out to be classified later on. They discovered them. They let the government know. They surrendered the papers, and there's an investigation. Now, I think Pence has already been cleared. Here's the crazy thing. Donald Trump was in exactly that same position shortly after his presidency. So there was a lot of boxes that went down to Florida. He had a fantastic defense. His defense was, I was the president. There's a lot of people moving boxes around, a lot of boxes going around. How do I know what's in the boxes? How do I know what these people are doing? I'm the president. I don't keep track of what's in some random box. Great defense. If he had just said, okay, just turn everything back over, it would have been done.
Yep.
And it's super clear when you read the indictment that they asked him very politely, like, pretty please, with sugar on it, will you give us the stuff back? A bunch of times. They eventually issued a subpoena. Then there's this like personal visit, like where they came out like, hey, have you read our subpoena? Please give us the stuff. And then all he's doing is he's trying to obstruct and find a way to get these documents. They were like his like it's almost like a kid's diary or something. It was like these classified documents mattered so deeply to him that he was willing to risk going to prison for them. It was really something.
No, it's crazy, and I think a lot of it speaks, to just who he is as a person, in my view. And I said at the beginning of the show, I think this is the first time in his life that anyone ever told him no, and he doesn't like it, and he's going to, as every 2 or 3 year old does. When you tell them no the first couple of times, they fight. They fight like hell to get what they want. This is how I see this.
Yeah, it's very juvenile. It really paints a bad picture of him. I mean, it is one thing that really is something is, of course, to see how this is solidifying in many ways the support of some Republicans for him, or they're still rallying around him. I mean, the picture it paints of him, even if you believe, their defenses to this, the Republican defenses to this, basically amount to two things. One is the Presidential Records Act means everything is his, okay, which is not actually what it says. It says basically the opposite. Or secondly, well, Hillary did it too,
right?
Okay, or Biden did it too, or whatever their thing is. But none of them are like, yeah, this is an amazing individual and he's doing a great job protecting our national secrets. Like, no one's saying that, right? Like, yes, like I lock my biggest secrets in the toilet as well. Like that's what I do. I like put my my will and my it's diamond jewelry. I put it all my valuables in my bathroom or in
not just the bathroom.
Ballroom.
I mean, if you read the indictment, these boxes they traveled. They were in a ballroom.
Oh, yeah.
They were over here. They were over there. They kept shuffling them around, trying to find places to hide them. I mean, it's just remarkable. Last question I've got for you, because again, what the Republicans are doing, and I think for their base, this rings, the victim card is what they've got to play. That this is all the DOJ doing Biden's bidding. That this is all a political witch hunt. They've weaponized the DOJ. Now, again, you've been a federal prosecutor. In looking at what's happened, I'm curious where your thoughts on that kind of a victim card being played is.
The funny thing, it's such a juxtaposition, Rick. The funny thing is, anybody reading this indictment sees that the FBI and DOJ gave him special treatment. He was treated with kid gloves. I mean, I'll just tell you right now, I was a federal prosecutor for a decade, and I've been in private practice for the last several years. I was in private practice before then. Now I've been in private practice for several years. I represent clients all the time. And I'm just going to tell you right now, my clients don't get this sort of special treatment. When they have some evidence the government wants, I don't get like the special happy thank you note or request. Hey, here's a polite letter. Would you please get us the contraband in your house? Would you please provide that to us? Take your time, okay? But just, you could just when you get around to it, would you please give it to us? I never get that. I mean, I get calls from people like the FBI was trying, was was screaming at my wife saying I'm going to prison if I don't talk. I mean, those are the sort of, that's the kind of calls I get from clients. I don't get calls like from clients who are like, oh yeah, the FBI is going to take us at our word that we returned all this stuff. Just let them know that we've done it, and just they'll take us at our word. I don't get those kind of calls. So the idea that this guy is the victim of some sort of witch hunt, this guy is literally been treated with the biggest kid gloves. But the irony of the whole thing, Rick, is that's what makes the case so strong. If they had gone in the way they ordinarily would, like if you or I, if in your little recording studio, if there's a bunch of classified documents in there, the FBI wouldn't wait. They would just go in and take the stuff, right? They might have, you might have some defenses if they did that to Trump. But with Trump, the fact that they were so polite, ironically, made the case much stronger.
So I guess last question: does he get convicted, and if he's convicted, does he see jail time?
Okay. First of all, if he's convicted, does he get convicted? He should be convicted. If this was John Doe, I would say it would be virtually a certainty. Slam dunk. The two words that really to me really give me some pause is Eileen Cannon, and who knows, because she definitely could throw the case, tank the case for again, or throw the case if she wanted to. And then regarding prison time, if this was John Doe and he did not commit obstruction, it would be a few years if he pled guilty. That's what I've literally looked at comparable cases. People in the military just keep a bunch of docs in their house and don't give them back right away. They get a few years if they plead. With the obstruction, I would tell somebody, if you plead with the obstruction, maybe high single digits. If you go to trial, maybe low double digits. That would be my guess. But with Trump, who knows? I mean, Eileen Cannon could give him 0 years of prison. It's a lot of discretion to the individual judge regarding sentencing. But I think this is as serious of a case as DOJ could bring. It may very well be the most serious case that DOJ ends up bringing.
We will see how this plays out. But Renato, as always, I appreciate you taking time from your busy schedule to keep us up on this and give us some thoughts. Thanks so much, man.
All right, thanks a lot. Have a good one.
Our good friend Renato Mariotti. Remember, check out his podcast, It's Complicated Podcast. We'll get links out on how you can take a look at that. Want to hear your thoughts, questions, comments, something on your mind? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break, right back after this. Stick around.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
I'll tell you one of my favorite stories over the weekend that I came across. It's one of those things that drives me nuts. St. Louis, there was a story of parents, and again, I look at Trump, bad parenting by Donald Trump's parents. I think so. Someone who, again, I don't think has ever heard the word no. But evidently in St. Louis County, there were parents who were angry. In fact, the word I think the report used was fuming mad that they weren't able to go to their child's 8th grade graduation ceremony. Oh no, No, they were fuming. Social media posts. This is my problem with social media. They never give you the whole story. They give you the outrage. They give you the, I was turned away. And my poor Precious, look at her cry because she's so sad. So I had to go look this story up. And this is again, what's wrong with our society and bad parenting. Turns out the little darlings that didn't get to go to their graduation, 8th grade graduation, were people who, well, poor attendance, fighting in school, other misdeeds, they messed up. And I started thinking back to when I was in school. I remember the 2 weeks before graduation. And the principal was very clear. You do something stupid, you don't get to walk. And kids understood that the ceremony of walking and getting your diploma was not about them. This isn't about the poor little precious 8th grader being able to walk and get, I graduated from 8th grade. It had nothing to do with them. It had everything to do with the parents. And this is one of those weird moments where things have changed. Again, had I gotten kicked out of my high school graduation, and granted I was not anywhere near the top of the class, my grandmother would have lost her mind. Had they said, no, you can't go, she would have been very unhappy because that meant something to her. And as students, you don't want to disappoint your grandparents or your parents, or at least I hope you don't. And this is where having, I don't know, common sense and having parents that enforce rules, this is important. And I'm glad that this school did it. My question, and this is where my mind went, why aren't all the schools doing this? Why have we allowed parents to run roughshod over the local public schools in ways that the bad actors, the ones who are causing problems, not doing their work, not showing up for class, they get rewarded like everyone else? And I know I sound like an old curmudgeon. No, there might be problems. Yeah, there might be problems. It's called bad parenting. Because I go back to, and if my mother were alive and if I didn't get to, I think about, the milestones in school that had my mother not got to see, she would have beat me senseless. And I know we're not allowed to hit kids anymore. That's bad. But there's got to be some punishment. Like my kids, I've never touched any of my children. But they don't know that I won't. And that fear is much worse than that actually happening. And they wouldn't anyway out of respect. At least I hope they wouldn't. But this is where we've gotten to as a society. This is how and social media is a huge part of this. Because I've said a million times, social media is where people are the worst versions of themselves. They're the worst possible people online. For instance, I said at the beginning, I got COVID last week, and I was starting to get my making sure the will's up to date, making sure, because who knows, I'm struggling. Lungs are filling up with icky stuff. Not happy, not breathing well. Better make sure everything's in order. The old George Carlin, 2 minutes, get your what together. And I started thinking about this, and I keep coming back to the kind of society that we live in, where no one's accountable anymore. No one's responsible. The Republican Party used to be the party of responsibility. They were supposed to be the fathers, if you remember those frames. They were supposed to be the paternalistic ones, and the Democrats were maternalistic. They were the soft. They were, oh no, you poor baby. What happened to the Republicans? What happened to the paternalistic GOP? I want to know. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, our good friend Bob Ney, former Ohio Congressman, political analyst, to share some thoughts on, what we're going to see over the next couple of days. Back after this.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1904. That was the day that 18,000 workers in Chicago's stockyards went out on strike. Work in the stockyards was often brutal and dangerous. Thousands of workers toiled in the yards, many of them immigrants from Eastern Europe. They worked butchering and processing the hogs and cattle raised in the American West into meat for distribution by rail to consumers across the country. The industry gave Chicago the nickname Hog Butcher for the World. In 1904, the Amalgamated Meat Cutters Union organized a strike. The main demand was increased wages. The meatpacking companies were able to get scabs to cross the picket lines and act as strikebreakers. Most were African Americans and European immigrants. Many of these workers had not been organized by the union, which was dominated by the skilled German and Irish packing house workers. Novelist Upton Sinclair visited the stockyards during the strike to research conditions faced by the workers. In his famous novel, The Jungle, Sinclair gave a fictionalized account that captured the devastating impact of the scabs on the strike. He wrote, quote, "Such were the stockyards during the strike, while the unions watched in sullen despair, and the country clamored like a greedy child for its food, and the packers went grimly on their way. Each day they added new workers, and could be more stern with the old ones, could put them on piecework, and dismiss them if they did not keep pace." It was not until the 1930s, when the stockyard unions took seriously the task of organizing across race, ethnic, and skill lines, that they finally won a contract and gained the rights of union recognition. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
As Scottish literary giant Robert Burns wrote, "The best laid schemes of mice and men go oft awry." His 1785 poem, titled To a Mouse, could be directed today at the right-wing sloganeers who've been scheming so furiously to turn their hokey woke snobbery into a winning political stratagem. "Your local librarian is woke," they screech. "So is Disney Inc., some of your churches too, plus all Democrats, and oh my God, even Bud Light." Creeping wokeism is the new Red Scare, welfare queen, and Willie Horton political bugaboos rolled into one, forming the main, quote, issue of Republicans now running for president, Congress, and dog catcher. But rather than getting defensive, insisting you are not woke, consider firing back by saying, "Of course I'm woke." For the great majority of Americans, being woke is a very positive characteristic, meaning you're awake, attentive to what's going on. Indeed, in black communities, stay woke has long meant staying alert to racial and social injustices. But even some Republicans must consider it bizarrely self-defeating for their party's top candidates to be urging voters to go to sleep. GOP leaders explain that anti-woke means crusading against DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. But wait, that means they're opposing America itself. For we are a nation united under the essential principle of e pluribus unum, as affirmed by everything from the Declaration of Independence to our kindergarten teachings of sharing and fairness. Ours is a country rooted in constant diversification, expanding equality, and the democratic idea that every voice ought to be included. Our country needs more of all three. This is Jim Hightower saying America is way short of achieving these historic ideals, but shame on those demanding we abandon even striving for them. Confront the charlatans.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
I'm really looking forward to see what's going to happen on Tuesday. And I know a lot of folks are, oh my gosh, finally. Finally. And here's the thing. A lot of folks I know didn't think this was going to happen. In fact, my next guest, and I'm going to kind of jab him a little bit here, because he said this was never going to happen. And it has. That's why I've asked my good friend Bob Ney, former Ohio congressman and political analyst, to come back and share some thoughts. Bob, thanks for taking time for us.
Well, thank you, Rick.
So, thoughts?
Well, now, see, let me give this answer. I never thought Merrick Garland would indict him.
Okay. See, that I will agree with you on.
Yes. And I was telling somebody, I didn't think he would. No, I did not think he would be indicted on this. I will tell you that I still don't believe Merrick Garland would ever indict him on this. But the special prosecutor is different, and Merrick Garland did not interfere. Merrick didn't. So, that was made clear that it was the choice of the special prosecutor.
Yeah, so now, look, I read the 47-page document, and there's a lot of stuff in there, Bob. There's a lot of bad.
Oh, look, 2 lawyers have quit. Trump spent most of his day today trying to interview lawyers for Miami. Trustee Rowley have had 2 lawyers up and resigned. They just said it was time to go. They didn't, give the rationale. And I think that the most telling interview on this, which I found fascinating, was Barr, who admits during the interview, former Attorney General William Barr, admits during the interview that, first the Mueller report, he defended Trump on that, and then other additional reports, the impeachments, he defended Trump, etc. Then Barr launches into the legal side of this. Now, the one thing I still will, caution on this is that this is a jury trial.
Right.
And statistically, they're going to find people who voted for Trump on that jury, and statistically people who didn't vote for Trump on that jury, and statistically people who didn't vote for Trump or Biden on that jury. And I mention that because jurors are human beings, and all it takes is one to hold out. So I don't like to predict the Supreme Court, and I never like to predict the jury, in most cases. This one is unique, and also they're going to do things legally that they wouldn't do if this were not a former president.
Yep.
The defense team, they're going to do it. They're going to make motions. They're going to argue constitutional issues. Does that bump up? I mean, do you stop the trial and say, well, wait a minute, we've got to decide this constitutionally, and it goes to another court? Yeah, I don't know.
No, I fully expect them to drag this out as long as they can, because they don't want it to happen before the trial, before the election.
Absolutely.
But they get to play the victim card so much longer.
Well, right, and also, but supposedly, I was told this by a lawyer. I don't know how accurate it is, but supposedly Florida goes faster for trials. I don't kind of buy that. Anything can be drug out.
Yep.
And also the Manhattan indictment, that's scheduled for December, and Trump's lawyers are trying to make that go later, throughout the year. Now, the one thing, and I was wrong. I did not think, again, that he would be indicted on this, because I just didn't think justice would do it. And also based on the fact that Biden had some documents and Pence had some documents, et cetera, and I figured a kind of a political weigh-in, but with the special prosecutor, I don't think that counts. Plus, he's going for some different statutes, the espionage statute, for example, than I thought he would. I'm still going to hold to the fact of what I said on your show this February and the previous 2022 February, which is I still don't think Donald Trump will be running in the Republican National Convention. And if anything, whether he's found innocent or he's found guilty of this, I think it really will be a factor. And if there's a decision on January the 6th and or a decision on Georgia, I think that about seals the fate of being able to hold a base together. I mean, Chris Christie's coming out swinging, and what you're going to have is even though the bulk of the candidates defended him, Republican candidates, you're still going to have the group movement that, behind their breath is like, you guys really don't want him, do you?
Yeah. No, the part of my head that's logical agrees with you. The fact that I know so many Trump supporters who don't care. In fact, the fact that he is criming is something that they're okay with. So, the fact that he is a bully, that he, maybe I'm going to take what I want and you up yours, that's something that resonates with them. So I say I'm still in the camp of I think it's his to lose. And then my concern is if you don't try him before the election, he quashes all this stuff when he appoints the next DOJ and this all was for naught.
Mm-hmm. Well, the one thing that I've been saying, and I'll make this real clear: if he's indicted and convicted, he still could win the Republican National Convention. So I do want to make that clear.
Right.
Because I always say he won't be in the Republican National Convention. I always say that. Because if he goes into the convention officially, he will win it. I don't care what he's done. He will win that convention.
Yes.
I'm thinking and have thought for quite a while he will find a way that he is not running for...
Okay, so just so I'm clear on this, because I want to make sure, because you're saying he's going to bail.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we get that right. He's going to bail.
He won't lose. Like I've said in the past, he won't lose. But I've always been very careful when I've been talking about this to say he won't be in the Republican convention. That's the difference.
So
if he wins, he wins.
So walk me through this, because I see this, and I've had some of my liberal friends call me crazy, but I see this as a huge gift for Trump because it lets him play that victim card all the time. They're coming after us. They want to take me away from you. This is a rallying cry to get that base that isn't as fervent as they once were, to give them some red meat to get out there with their muskets and start marching in the streets.
Well, here's what I base this totally on and it's all based on personal feelings with Donald Trump himself. And the reason I say that is this. Again, I agree, Rick. This helps him. It's a victim card. If he goes into the convention, he wins. If he goes in, if he's in prison, he wins the convention. So I want to make that clear. But I just have never believed he will find a way to not run. And the reason I say that is because when I say it's personal with Donald Trump, this does nothing to hurt him in winning or losing the Republican convention. It helps him. But in the general election, this makes him toast with, and I don't care how bad Biden's doing at this time or whatever, but this makes him toast with independents and swing voters. And I think because of that, in his mind, he doesn't want to lose a second time, even, quote, if it's stolen. Now, after saying all of this, let me be a hypocrite for a second because I ruined friends of mine. It still could be a close election because there's some unknowns with President Biden. It could turn out not so good.
Yep.
So I would still say if he runs, it could be a tight election. I just don't think he's going to run because I think deep in his mind, he knows that he is toast and it would be such a struggle with the independents and the people who went from, Obama to Trump and then back to Biden, the swing voters.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. So do you think any of the big guy stuff, do you think any of the stuff that Republicans are doing in the House right now we've got the information. We know what he's done. He got $5 million. He got paid off. You think any of that? Do you think there's anything there? And do you think that's going to come out?
Well, I mean, you never know, but the reason I have doubts on it is this. Whenever you have a criminal case, and I will talk from experience in my case, you had people coming forth that provided bizarre information. Ridiculous at best information. I had received a free boat from the Shah of Iran's daughter. Somebody else gave me a penthouse to live in Georgetown. All these kinds of things. So those are, somebody that would have access to the case would say, well, that's in there. He got a boat from the Shah's daughter. It's in there. So if you read, all the people they interviewed, there's going to be some things like that in there. And in this case, I think at the presidential level, if in fact they had something tapes of Joe Biden saying, yeah, give me $5 million, and it's yours, I think that thing would have rolled out a long time ago.
Yeah.
So
again,
we're going to be looking at allegations made as cases are, looked at or presented by the government. And again, I used a real example just now. Another one was a birthday party they were going to investigate where supposedly somebody paid for a birthday party which never happened. Stuff like that people throw out there. So I think in the president's case, that's what you're seeing.
Yeah, as I said from the beginning, if you can draw me a line that isn't just Hunter Biden and Jim and the rest of them doing what relatives do with people in power and using their name to put a couple of bucks in their pocket. If you can show me how that, there was a quid pro quo of Biden doing something for them to get something, unless you can show me that path, there's nothing here. Or do you see it differently?
No, unless there's a direct path. In my case, the government knew that they did not have a quid pro quo from Abramoff to me. They knew it. We knew they knew it. They knew they knew it. If they did have it, there would have been an indictment. They wouldn't have went back and forth of a poker table dance. We could indict. You want to do a plea deal? If they have something, they go.
Yeah,
that's what they do.
No,
that's how they operate. Like I said, been there, done it. So they would have to have a quid pro quo on tape where it's, Joe Biden saying, "Why don't you give me $5 million and I'll do the following for you." They would have to have that kind of thing on tape.
Yeah, I want to get your thoughts. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with Bob Ney, former Ohio congressman, political analyst. I want to get your thoughts on the House, because the temper tantrum, evidently, the Freedom Kooks have. I guess they're ending. The headline read, they end their floor blockade. So the temper tantrum is I guess waning a little bit, but they're still thinking on how they can go after Kevin McCarthy. Any thoughts on this latest temper tantrum?
Sure. He's done a deal with them, is what the speaker has done, and let's call it a temporary deal because it's going to have to happen again. All right. So when they were asked about, what are you going to do? The media asked them. I think there were 6 or 7 of them in the room at the time. The Freedom people. This is before they went to the floor and stopped routine bills from going through the rules. And they said, "What are you going to do? If he does this deal with President Biden and it has a vote, we're going to vacate the chair." Who will vacate the chair? The media asked. One guy put his hand up. Can't remember which congressman it was, but one of them put his hand up because that's what they said. Well, we will vacate the chair because they got their way with one member doing it. Well, they didn't vacate the chair because they know if they vacated the chair would sit empty for 4.5 months because even they don't have a candidate they can get votes from, and the Democrats would probably go to McCarthy, and there might be a deal struck. So they knew that. So they did these, tactics, blockading, etc., and which eventually, by the way, would have grown against them against their side because they're going to stop things that other members want to have out there. So McCarthy does an arrangement, right? He meets with them. He's doing some kind of deal with them. They aired their issues, is what they said, and the floor will be functioning. Now, I can tell you right now, because I used to, I love these little nuggets to give them on your show, the inside open secrets. I used to give out rooms, and we would do it in coordination with the speaker. The hideaways, they call them.
Right.
There's not many of them. there were secret rooms throughout the lower levels of the Capitol. Every once in a while, if we had like a real problem or they really, really needed somebody, I'd get a phone call from the Speaker's office. Any rooms available, you know? And so a member might get a hideaway, you know? Some of these members might have went privately to the Speaker and said, hey, you know, down the line, can I have that subcommittee chairmanship? So there's all kinds of things that could have happened here.
Now, there's tons of sweeteners in that. Now, did anyone ever ask for the room to bring someone down there to smack him around a little bit? Because that's where my mind goes.
Well, I could really answer something else, but I won't. Mine involves smacking.
Okay, we're moving right along.
Moving along. So the other thing about the Freedom Caucus was this. The reason they, quote, cut a deal and they had this power sharing agreement is because, Rick, they couldn't hold out doing these tactics. They were angering all the rest of the membership on the Republican side.
Yeah.
So they, quote, came to terms. This was just them thumping their chest and,
So like children, they had their tantrum.
That was it.
And now we're going to move, somewhere. I'm not going to say forward, but we're moving somewhere. So last question I got for you. Tuesday the big hearing. There's lots of talk of potential violence. There's lots of talk of protest. What are you going to be paying attention to as you're watching the day unfold?
Well, I mean, he's looking for
Trump's court appearance.
Yeah, his court appearance. There's going to be a lot of publicity. Obviously, people are going to be going crazy. It's an event of the century, and the media will go insane with it. We'll make statements. I don't expect, though. I really don't expect, a ton of violence. People will turn out. I don't expect people to turn out in droves, though.
Yeah. See, I don't either.
I really don't.
But we will see. I had Joe Walsh earlier tell me he thinks there's going to be a lot of people. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not seeing it.
I mean, are there going to be 10,000, 15,000? That would be a lot of people. No, there might be 1,000 or 800 or something. Yeah. But I just don't think it's going to be what Trump would want it to be.
Exactly. Yeah, well, we'll see how much money he raises after the hearing.
Oh, he will raise money. Yeah.
Oh, no, he's got a fundraiser right after, so we'll see how this plays for him.
No doubt.
Good stuff,
He'll raise
Bob.
Money.
Appreciate the time as always.
Thank you, Rick.
Our good friend Bob Ney. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. What are you going to be paying attention to? What are you watching for? Is it going to be will the Nazis be not marching down the streets in Miami? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Miss any portion of the program? Make sure you grab the podcast. Right back.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. In 1981, the Los Angeles Dodgers dropped the first two games of the World Series to their rivals, the New York Yankees. The Dodgers would come roaring back, sweeping the next 4 games, and so close the curtain on one of the strangest seasons in baseball history. The strangeness of the season began on this day in labor history. This was the first day of a strike that would last until August 9th. Nearly a third of all games were canceled. The reason for the strike was free agency. The players had won the right to become free agents a year after their contracts ended. Before this change, owners could renew players' contracts year after year, effectively stopping players from testing their market value with other teams. Determined to reverse the gains won by the players' union, owners brought in Roy Graby as a negotiator. Graby had a tough reputation for representing management for General Electric and for Pan American World Airlines. He took that same hard-nosed approach to the baseball bargaining table. The owners wanted the right to receive a player of comparable value for any player lost to free agency. This would effectively discourage teams from signing free agents if they had to give up another valuable player in return. The players' union understood this was a tactic to undermine free agency. Many also saw it as an attempt to break the players' union. Sports Illustrated magazine declared it the walkout owners provoked. Finally, the two sides agreed to a compromise that kept the practice of free agency intact. In a controversial decision, baseball owners decided to split the season into two. The teams with the best records from each half of the strike-divided season went to the playoffs. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, thericksmithshow.com. Good story here, and it's one of those things. Our friends over at the Blue Green Alliance, they've come out with some interesting numbers when looking at the Inflation Reduction Act and the fact that we're moving towards building some clean energy, the jobs that are going to be created. As their report points out, solar job production is going to grow from about the 300,000 that we have now to about 4.5 million in 2035. They're saying that's more than a 5-fold increase in solar jobs, and solar will be one of the top jobs in this country. And you go, we need the manufacturing, we need the installation, we need the servicing, we need all of that stuff. They point out that the Inflation Reduction Act introduced 3.7 million new solar jobs, including 2.5 million in manufacturing, 1.2 in operations and construction. And without this investment that we're making, that we, the people, are making, solar jobs would have increased by 500,000 to 800,000. We were moving down the path anyway. The market was moving us there. But this influx, this boost is going to get us down the road faster. And this is one of those things it's incredible to me that we haven't gone full on. Hey, we've got those southwestern states that got a lot of open space. You could, I don't know, put a roof over it. Use some of those solar panels to, I don't know, create some electricity so that, places like Phoenix and Tempe, if you do run out of power, don't. I mean, this is what I love hearing from people. If we go to all electric, the things could go out. And you go, yeah, have you heard of batteries? This is where we create a grid. This is where we create the future. This is that opportunity and the jobs that come with it. So I give Joe Biden credit. And look, as someone said earlier, Biden's got a record to run, and he does. He's created millions of jobs. We've invested in the first time in decades in our infrastructure. We're creating industries. We're bringing industries back. There's a lot of opportunity to get away from red hat, blue hat. There's a lot of opportunities to say, you know what? Don't care what team you're on. It's about moving the country forward, investing in the future, and making us as independent and as powerful as we can be. There was a story today that Trump actually tried to get other countries to lower production of fuel, to raise prices, to save the oil industry. I know, but Donald cares about us. Get out of here. Just lunacy. And finally, Ted Cruz evidently has introduced a bill that's going to ban investment funds from leveraging private money, private retirement accounts, to push their ESG, their environmental social governance, and their diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because hey, those are all horrible things. What Ted Cruz never did? He never stopped corporate America from robbing your pensions. He never stopped corporate America from screwing working people over. But the second working people go, you know what? We'd like to have better opportunities. We'd like to see things a little different. That bridge way too far. You know which side Ted's on. I want to hear your thoughts, though. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast. Wherever you find your podcast, you will find ours. As always, appreciate you being here. Hopefully going to feel a little bit better tomorrow. It's been a rough day, but we'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.